the session is going to be recorded. Don't worry about it. So the recordings will be uploaded in say Thursdays as usual. So today we came up with Streamlit. So that was a popular demand when I was taking the session on Teapot last month. So VIC, but that needs to be louder. Okay, so is the voice louder, guys, or uh, is it okay, guys, or the voice is still low? It's perfect. Okay, 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 fine. So those who have are not able to hear it, I guess it might be an issue from you, and just check the internet once. So what I was saying, yeah. So basically, Streamlit was one of the sessions that most of you guys were asking for. So before moving ahead with today's session, I just want to give you guys a disclaimer that we will be starting a series of sessions on end-to-end machine learning algorithms from data collection. That is from how to collect the data from a SQL database or a NoSQL. We haven't prepared the whole material yet, but yeah, we are planning to go for a series of sessions, like 7 to 8 sessions on this, which will include just from data extraction to model deployment, including DevOps, a bit of DevOps like CI/CD, which will help in model monitoring, right? So that is what we are planning for next one. Most probably we'll start it from midweek of Feb or first week of Feb. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, I guess this thing will be beneficial for you. What do you guys think? Is it going to be great? Yeah, that's what I was actually planning. Let's have a just because right now, we were just dealing with CSV data that we used to directly download. But obviously, in real world, you guys don't get the pre-built data, right? Like CSV data, you'll have to extract it from somewhere. So that is where we are like planning it up. Let's see till what extent we guys can plan it up. But yeah, we are planning it for next month. So let's see, hope it goes well, right? So anyways, so today's session is basically a quick session on Streamlit. Basically what I will show is, yeah, Umesh, let's see how we can do the data extraction part, because we are having so many databases. So let's see, because we need to think of this from the students and as well, that student doesn't get confused, right? So let's see how we prepare the material and how we move ahead. But yeah, I just wanted a feedback if this thing can be planned or not. So as of now, as I saw, most of you guys are saying that it's perfect, we should go ahead. So yeah, I'll just speak with the team and we can just plan it out in such a way, right? Like 7 to 8 or 9 more, might be 9 sessions as well, but right. Yeah, okay, great. So for today's session is just a quick session of 1 hour, which I basically which in which I will be showing you guys a model deployment using Streamlit. But the model deployment will be in my local system, I won't be doing it in cloud. Okay, so basically, see, why I am doing this is because obviously in the that series of sessions we'll be dealing with cloud and everything, right? So it's of no use just taking it again and again. But Streamlit is something which I want to show, because in that series we won't be using Streamlit, we will be using something known as Flask and GUnicorn. Okay, so that for that reason I'm just showing Streamlit in this session, so that you guys can have an idea how the deployment basically takes place and how to create a very basic web app, right? In the coming this thing, what you can say, in the coming projects as well, you guys can implement that, right? Like if you have created a model and if you want to dig a bit deeper inside it, you can just create a web app using Streamlit, because it's going to be very simple. So once we start, you guys will understand that it's not that difficult to create a web app using Streamlit. Okay, so are you guys interested to implement it in a project or something? Can will I be able to look at some web app links in the upcoming projects? Okay, okay, great, great. Sure. So, in the beginning, we'll just have a look at the PPT that is having around 5 to 6 slides. We'll have just quickly have a look at the PPT. No, Chiranjit, deployment doesn't. it won't be good if you are using Google Colab. You should always use your local system, because in deployment you guys will have to work from terminal as well. So see, what I would suggest, deployment and production, that is basically something which you can work very comfortably in Linux. Okay, because I am having Linux installed in my system, but because most of our students and users are from Windows, so I will be doing it in Windows. But in Linux it becomes very easy. Okay, because the terminal that is available in Linux, those who guys work on Linux, you guys know how friendly and how user friendly the terminal in Linux is. But that the same thing doesn't happen in this thing, command prompt, right? Yeah, exactly, Ubuntu I'm saying. So that's but that same thing doesn't happen command prompt that is available in Windows, right? You guys, if you work on command prompt, you will see that you will have to get some permissions again and again, but that doesn't happen in Linux. So that becomes very easier whenever you are dealing with Linux. So production is something that becomes very easier in Linux. But yeah, I would suggest go for the local system, don't move to Google Colab. I'll be showing you guys today the same case study in the Jupyter notebook as well, not in Google Colab. Okay, so that is why I'm suggesting go for the whenever you are practicing it up, go for the local system. Okay, exactly, Anila, it becomes very difficult with Windows. Okay, anyways, let me just open it up. Let me just open the PPT and share the screen. Model deployment with Streamlit, right? Let me share the screen. Okay, is the screen visible, guys? Okay, great. There is a background noise behind you. Is it with everyone? Okay, just let me switch to my AirPods then. I'm using my wired headphone right now. Just let me switch to my AirPods and then let's see if the noise comes up. Just a second.
Hello, is the voice audible now? Is it clear? Or still the noise is coming up? Worse. Now, is it clear? Okay, it's better. Okay. Now, is it better? Is it better now, guys? Okay, basically, this noise is coming up from my fan, I guess, because it's in very high speed right now. It's getting very warmer here in Pune. So, because of that, the fan was in very high speed, but I lowered it up now. So, I guess it's Delhi aa jao. I know it's very cold in Delhi, I guess, right? Because that is something I was hearing from my colleagues as well, that it's like getting worse in Delhi again day by day. Okay, fine, no problem. I'm just continuing with the session now. I hope the voice is clear now, right? Okay, cool. So, model deployment with Streamlit, right? What do you guys understand by the term deployment? Any idea? Because that is something that you guys were asking us, right? That deployment session should be there. So what do you understand? Anything in layman terms? Okay, fine. So let's leave the deployment part. Right now, whenever we are building a model in Jupyter Notebook, okay, whenever we are building a model in Jupyter Notebook using Python, how we used to test the model? we used to do something known as dot predict. No, train test is for splitting the data into train and test, right? But for prediction, suppose I have fitted the model training is done. Now I want to predict using the model. I want to put some test data. How I used to do it? Using dot predict, correct? But suppose I'm not splitting it into suppose I'm not taking any data from my original data. Basically, what we used to do, we used to have a original data. From there, we used to split it into train and test, correct? But suppose I'm not taking any data from that original data as testing. I'm putting any unknown or random data inside it. How will I put it? Have you tried this out, guys, in Jupyter? So here, usually what we used to put, what I'm asking Rahul is, we used to put X test inside this, correct? Model.predict then X test, correct? And we used to store this as predictions, right? This is what we used to follow in each and every model usually, right? But what if I say that I don't want X test, I just want to insert it randomly? What I'll do, I'll just insert an array of values, but those array of values should match with the train data columns. Suppose I'm having, let's say, let me just help this thing out. Annotations, correct. Suppose today we will be dealing with a car sales data. Okay, and that is basically a data set. Basically, we'll be creating a web app where we will be predicting the selling price of a used car. Okay, so let me take 3 features from there. Okay, let me take 4 features, out of which 3 will be my independent and 4th will be my dependent. Basically, let me take this as my price. Okay, this is my number of years. So just ignore my handwriting. Okay, if you don't understand, just type it up. Number of years. Then let me say this is my present price, and this is my present number of kilometers. Okay, these are my features, and this is what I need to predict: 3x and 1y, correct? Now if I need to suppose the training is done, now I would need to test it up. How will I do? I'll put it inside here. I'll put it inside here as number of years. Let me take it as 20 years. Then number of, then the next column is going to be your price, right? So let me take it as 2,50,000. Okay, present price of that vehicle. And kilometer, I will be putting it as how much? Let's take it as 20,000 kilometers. Okay, so this is going to be my test data that I am putting, and this is not a data that I am taking from my original data, right? I haven't taken it using train test split, correct? Understanding what I am saying, how I am giving the input. If I am having 3 values out here, I am just passing an array of those 3 values, or you can say a list of those 3 values, instead of taking it as a test data, right? But if you want to show it to your stakeholder, suppose there is a client out there and you want to just show them that how your model is performing, how the predictions are going on, will you show them the Jupyter notebook and ask them to enter a list of values inside it? Will it work like that? Sorry, Arijit, why we created it, I didn't understand. So basically we'll be having a front end for that. So what is this? This is going to be our backend, right? The model is will be working in your backend. And to to show to the stakeholders will require a front end so that they can easily insert it in the, they will be having proper fields. They can just insert the values and they get the output. That is going to be a better option for the stakeholders, right? Because obviously they are not developers out there. If you are just going to show them something in Python, they won't be able to understand. They will say, what is this? What nonsense is this? I can't understand. How can I just give the project to you? Correct? Getting my point? So for that, we'll have to have a front end for that. For front end, we used to have UI UX developers and web developers out there. But right now we used to have something known as Streamlit and Flask, which makes it very easy for people like us, machine learning engineers, to create a front end and deploy the model and test it out. Obviously, for production, when you won't the company won't ask us to do it, right? We used to have different departments of DevOps and web developers. They will be doing it. We just need to look at the backend. But for us, we need to just deploy it up and show it to the stakeholders. Or if you want to create a project, if you want to deploy it, you can just create it using Streamlit. You don't need any web developer or any DevOps engineer out there. Yeah, you hand out the .pickle file, Pranay. You will hand out the .pickle file, but how will you show the same predictions that I was telling you? Basically, what will happen in pickle file also, you will hand out the pickle file, they will load the pickle file, then they will be doing the same thing here, the thing that I'm doing. Predictions equals to model.predict. But this is something that is not good, right? If you're giving them a proper UI where they can just or they can just easily insert the values and get the output, that is a better option, right? And for those type of cases, we are having something known as Streamlit. Clear till here, guys, how the prediction happens really in the backend and how we can do it using Streamlit. Obviously, the Streamlit part, whenever I'll be showing you, you'll be getting it. But actually, how the data you can insert in a prediction model. Getting it right? Great. So that is what model deployment with Streamlit is. Now let me move on to the next slide. So today's agenda is basically we'll be looking at the ML workflow first. Then we'll be moving on to the definition of Streamlit. What is Streamlit basically? The frameworks that is going to be compatible with Streamlit. And then we will look at the pros and cons of Streamlit, because everything is having, if something is having its advantages, it's going to have its disadvantages as well. Then we'll look at a demo case study. Okay. So this is going to be our workflow. This workflow you guys know, right? I mean, let me just annotate. At least till here, I expect you guys to know. Am I right or not? This is something which is not taught to you guys yet, right? But this part you guys know, like importing the data set, pre-processing it, doing feature engineering, feature scaling, standardization, model training. Then we'll be doing evaluations. Then we'll look at hyperparameter tuning. Okay. Hepzibah is not clear with hyperparameter. Okay, Hepzibah, in which particular module you are right now? Okay, so basically, I guess you have missed some sessions or something, because hyperparameter tuning is already covered in GCD, right? So just go through it once, and obviously I'll be showing it to you in the today's case study as well, so you'll understand it probably. Yeah, this is taught in ML exactly. So hyperparameter tuning is there. Then again, you'll train the model with those parameters, then model evaluation, right? After your final model is created, after that, what we'll do? We will deploy the model so that we can use it for our real data. After that, something known as model monitoring comes up, which we won't be taking it today. Basically, that will be covered in the series that we are planning. Okay, we'll just look at model deployment, that too in our local system today. Cool. Clear till here how the workflow will work, right? Till here, obviously, you guys know. That is why I have picked you guys probably whosoever has completed the machine learning part. After that, we'll be dealing with the model deployment. In today's case study, we will be looking at these as well. So you guys don't need to worry if you don't have an idea about this, but in a very quick way, right? Because I won't be focusing more on this part. I'll be investing more time on the deployment part. Cool. Chandra is saying coolest. Okay, fine. So what is Streamlit? Streamlit is a tool for data scientists and machine learning to create the front end of the web application. It is built as a wrapper around JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, right? So JavaScript, HTML, and CSS are something which are used to create the front end, right? Whenever you are creating a website, we guys used to use these type of tools. But Streamlit will cover everything. If you guys don't know HTML, it's okay. That is something which won't be we won't be considering much more depth in this particular part. Okay. Pankaj, I don't have the idea of .NET, so I won't be the correct person to answer this. But yeah, you guys might try it up if possible, because I have never used it up, so I don't know. Sorry. So yeah, that is how Streamlit is basically. As I said, Streamlit is a tool that is used to create the front end of the web application, and that this is something which has been designed possibly for us, right? For us data scientists and machine learning engineers, those who are sitting here, because we don't know how to develop. We are not web developers out there. We are not UI UX engineers. We are data scientists, right? But still, we need to have an idea about how the front end and the back end work basically. So that for that particular thing to work, we are having Streamlit out here. No, no, no. It is an open source, so you don't need any license for it. Yeah, yeah. It's free. It's free of cost. So now frameworks compatible with Streamlit. So basically Python, NumPy, Keras, Seaborn, everything is going to be compatible with Streamlit. Okay. So if you want to create dashboards and beautiful dashboards out there, you can use Bokeh, then Matplotlib. Fine. Now we'll look at some pros and cons of Streamlit. So pros are basically Streamlit is going to be very interactive. It is you can customize it according to your need. Deployment is going to be very easy. How many of you guys have used Flask out there? Any one of you? Okay, Aditya has used it. Chandra has used it. Mukul has used it. Umesh has used it. Okay, so whosoever you have used it, after going through today's session, in the very end, I will be asking you which is going to be very easy way to deploy the model. Okay, obviously Flask is having its own advantages, right? And this is going to be having its own advantages. But if you want to just create a simple web app, which is going to be the easiest way? Is it going to be Flask or is it going to be Streamlit? So this is the question that I'll be asking to those students out here who has used Flask earlier. Okay. Yeah, those who haven't used, no issues, guys. We'll be dealing it with anyways in the series that we are planning. But as of now, whosoever has used, I just want a feedback whichever is easier way. Okay. Now the cons part is nothing but the front end interface is fixed. The control position that we'll be looking at can't be adjusted, and this is a very important factor whenever you are designing something. Okay, so this is a very bad thing of Streamlit right now, but still it is in the development stage, so we can't say. It might be customizable in the coming months ahead, but as of now it's not. Okay, the interface is fixed. Clear till here? Okay, okay, Mukul, great one. Yeah. Okay. So someone was asking a question to me. I guess I messed it up. No, fine. Okay, great. So these are the pros and cons of Streamlit. Fine. So now we'll be moving ahead with the demo case study. See, I didn't invested much time on the PPT because anyways, everyone is interested for the case study, right? So I am just going ahead with the case study now. Yeah, it's possible to use the API from other tools as well, Amitra. I already showed you the compatible tools out there, right? Also, you guys can go through the documentation once if you guys want to dig a bit deeper inside it so that you guys can get a good idea about it, how you can customize it according to your needs, right? Pankaj is saying, so there must be chart loaders, etc., where we pass charts out of Matplotlib, Seaborn, etc. Okay, Pankaj, what I would suggest, go through it, go through the documentation once. If past this chart loaders are available. As of now, when I was using it, was not. I didn't already, although I didn't use it up, but it might be there, so you guys can go through it. Okay. Oh, that's great, Dinesh. That's great. Okay, fine. So let's move ahead with the demo case study now. So according to the workflow that I showed you, what should be the first step that we need to deal with right now? We need to create the backend, right? We need to build our model and train it up and create a model out there and save it, right? That is what we need to do right now. Exactly, Chiranjit. Data load, clean, and model building. Yeah, everyone please shift to all panelists and attendees. As of now, I can see everyone is doing it on all panelists and attendees itself. No, I am not sharing it right now. I'll just share it. Just give me a second. Softwares in the sense, are you asking for the packages or are you asking me about Anaconda and all those stuff? Chandra? So basically, no such other software is required. Obviously, Jupyter Notebook one or PyCharm, any one of those is required, right? And the packages, whichever is required, obviously we're looking at it right now, and you can just install it over there. But Anaconda, or you can say in Anaconda distribution, if you are having, it's great. Otherwise, you can go for PyCharm as well. Fine. Okay, so let me just open my Jupyter Notebook and show it to you. So how many of you guys know why do we use virtual environments, by the way? Any idea? Yeah, I haven't shared the screen yet, Rashesh. Virtual machine, virtual environment. I'm asking about virtual environment, scaling for dependence. No, not number of machines. Basically, what is a virtual environment? What is an environment, by the way? In very layman terms, if you say, what is an environment? Don't go into technicalities out there. If I ask you what is an environment, what should be the very basic definition? Working area, ecosystem where we can work. Exactly. So what happens, let me share a whiteboard first, okay? So what happens, is the whiteboard visible, guys? No, that is a virtual machine, Arijit. That is a virtual machine. I am asking about virtual environment. Now, what happens whenever you are working in your Anaconda distribution, okay? whenever you are working in your Anaconda distribution normal Jupyter notebook, you are basically using your Conda environment. Okay, you are using your Conda environment. Suppose you are installing NumPy. How do you install NumPy? How do we install NumPy? With pip, right? I'm installing, suppose pip install NumPy. Pip install NumPy, right? I'm installing pip install pandas, suppose. But in some project, suppose I'm doing a project out there, there used to be some versions out there, you guys know, right? Like pandas might have version 1.2, NumPy might have version 2.5. I am just giving it in a fictional way, okay? Don't consider it as an exact value. You know, you used to have some versions out there, right? So what happens, suppose you are doing a project out there and you want pandas version 0.9 and your machine has installed pandas 1.2. What will you do in this particular case? You will again install pip install pandas 0.9, correct? Pip install pandas 0.9. Yeah, that is what downgrade is basically. Pip install, you are specifying the version of pandas that you want, right? Pip install 0.9, correct? Example, Python version matter for the project, so it's useful to install specific. Exactly. That is where I am approaching, Rup Kumar. So pip install pandas equals to 0.9. That is what you guys will do. But suppose in another project you are doing and you want pandas version 1.2. What will you do? Again, you will upgrade it, right? 1.2. Correct? This is what we will be doing. But instead of this, suppose I am creating a different environment for that. There is a method to create a different environment out there. What I would suggest, go to Google it up how to create a new environment in Anaconda. There is a command out there. Basically what happens, if you are downgrading it to 0.9, you will be having pandas 0.9 installed, not 1.2. And in the other project, if you want 1.2, again you'll have to install pandas 1.2. But if you again want to execute the other project which was requiring 0.9, again you will be installing 0.9. Isn't it going to be time consuming and frustrating at the same time? No, that's not possible, Dinesh. You'll have to install only one version at a time. Exactly, Chiranjit. So suppose you want to create an environment. You have created an environment name as, let's take it as pandas 0.9. This is your environment name. In that environment, you are installing pip install pandas equals to 0.9. Okay, you have installed this library and then you are executing your run app.py. Basically, app.py is the Python notebook that you have created. Okay, this will execute perfectly. And for the 1.2 version, what you will do, you will create another Python Conda environment that is going to be pandas 1.2. There you will install pip install pandas equals to 1.2, correct? And then you will use your run, suppose app1.py. Now, if you are executing these two simultaneously, will these two work? Will these two work simultaneously if you are executing? Why no, Rahul? Sudha? That is what I am saying, Uday. These two are your different environments. So in pandas 1.2 environment, you are having pandas equals to pandas version 1.2 already installed. In pandas 0.9 environment, you are having pandas 0.9 installed. So whenever you are, suppose you are using pandas 0.9 environment, and then you are running app1.py, it won't run. Why? It's going to be a bit confusing, okay, but catch my words what I'm saying. If I am saying I am switching to pandas 0.9 environment, and then I am running app1.py, leave all these stuffs that I have written. Consider only these two. I have pandas 0. I am in my pandas 0.9 environment, and then I am running app1.py. App1, not app. Sudha, just look at it. I am saying I am in my pandas 0.9 environment, and I am running app1.py. Will it work? No, exactly. It won't work. Why? Because the required dependency version is not available. App1 has 1.2 version. Exactly, Jigna. Mismatch of version. This particular thing is known as what? This is known as version conflict. This is known as version conflict. To avoid this version conflict, what we used to do, we used to create different environments for each and every project. Yeah, you can create multiple virtual environment in your computer, Dinesh. N number of multiple environments you can create. Okay. So whenever you want to run app1.py, switch to your pandas 1.2 environment and run it. It won't affect it, right? And if you want to run app.py, then go for pandas 0.9 environment and run it. You don't need to install it again and again, right? Getting my point, what I'm saying? You don't need to install the versions again and again. You are having 1.2 and 0.9 both installed in different environments. Isn't it great? That is how basically you'll have to work. As of now, here, I won't be taking the environment thing because it's already installed in my local system. But whenever you guys will be doing it, I would suggest do your projects in your proper environments. Exactly. App 1 and app both are different projects. Let me change the name. Let me take it as tapas.py and let me take it as dinesh.py. So basically these two projects are different projects. One is tapas.py and one is dinesh.py. Dinesh.py requires 1.2 as the version, and tapas.py requires pandas version 0.9. Yeah, you can do it, Amit. You can just try this thing out. You can do it, absolutely. Getting my point, Tapas, what I'm saying? So if you want to run dinesh.py, you will be able to run it in pandas 1.2 environment because it requires this dependency. These libraries are nothing known as dependency. You know what is a dependency, right? What is a dependency? Yeah, exactly, Suraj. It's like two separate instances running simultaneously. What is a dependency, guys? See, I am running a bit late on time, but I want you guys to understand it properly. That's why I'm just investing a bit time in here. What is a dependency? Exactly. So whichever libraries we used to import like pandas, numpy, sklearn, all these are known as dependencies. Okay. So dinesh.py has a dependency of 1.2 and tapas.py has a dependency of 0.9. Okay. Anyway, so we are in a bit of short of time, so I won't be investing much time here. Are you guys clear with the virtual environment concept that I taught? Great, right? Okay. So I'll just stop share this now. Let me start with the implementation part. Where is it? Need to go to downloads. Card, right? Let me share it up. Is the screen visible, guys? Okay. So in table of contents, we are having introduction, problem statement. Then we will be having the libraries that we will import, data acquisition, data description information, pre-processing, a bit of EDA, preparation, and model development. Okay. So introduction, I have given a brief introduction about Streamlit. You guys can go through it once I had uploaded it in LMS. So everything is in Python basically, all for free and no front-end experience required. I mentioned these things in the very beginning, correct? So I won't be investing time in this. Let's move on to the statement. In problem statement, we are basically predicting the price of a used car. In many developed countries, it is common to buy a used car or a second-hand car rather than buying it outright. Do I need to zoom in a bit? Okay. Is it visible now? Okay. So in many developed countries, it is common to buy a second-hand car, right? Predicting the resale value of car is not a simple task. You have to predict the selling price of a car using machine learning algorithm. That is going to be our task. Clear with the problem statement? Great. So now we are importing our libraries as usual. Pandas, NumPy, Pickle. Why do we use Pickle, by the way? Any idea? To store the model, not Streamlit. It is basically to save the model, or you can say save the pipeline. Whenever you are creating your model, suppose you have done your project, let me give me an example of ML foundation project that you have done quickly. Quickly, someone. IPL analysis. No, I'm asking about model ML1, Churn. Okay. So Arijit, if you have done your Churn project in your Jupyter notebook, if you want to do the prediction, what we'll have to do? If suppose you have done the project today, now tomorrow you want to do the predictions. You will open your Jupyter notebook and directly do prediction, or you will have to run the whole code again, run the whole pipeline again. Run the whole pipeline again, correct? Is it going to be same with each and every one? That is what I'm explaining, Dinesh. Why Pickle import is there. So to avoid this, what you can do, you can save your model and load it up directly. You can save your model. Basically, what is a model? If you are creating a linear regression model, suppose you are creating a linear regression model, what will happen? You will get a best fit line, correct? You will get, suppose this is your linear regression model, this is your best fit line. This is going to be, equation is going to be y equals to mx plus c. So whenever you are saving the model in this case, what will be, what it is going to save? Basically, it is going to save your m and c value, correct? It is going to save your m and c value, not y. Y is your target variable out there. It will save your m and c value. So basically, this is something that is done with using Pickle. So Pickle will save the model for you, and whenever you want to use it, you can load the same model using Pickle. I'll show it to you how that particular thing is doing. Load the model and directly predict it up. Clear till here why Pickle we are using up here? Okay, great. After that, I'm using label encoder. Why do we use label encoder? To encode the values, correct? Metrics to evaluate the model. Randomized search CV. Why do we use it? Why do we use randomized search CV? Hyperparameter tuning, right? I'm using random forest regressor model out here, Seaborn for my visualization and Matplotlib for my visualization. Now the second point is your data acquisition and description. The data is provided by a used car selling company and it is accessible here. Basically, if you want to access the data set, you can click here. This is going to be your data set. Okay. So I have imported it using pandas, and this is going to be my data set. What are the features out here? I am having car name, year, selling price, present price, kilometers driven, fuel type, seller type, transmission, and owner. This is going to be my data set. Where what is my selling, which is going to be my target variable here? Abhinav, which price? We are having two price here. Why not present price? Arijit, why it should be present price? Because we are predicting what? See, present price is nothing but the actual market value of that particular price, right? Actual present market value of that particular price right now. Suppose you have bought a Ritz in 2014 in 5 lakhs. Right now, the present price is 5.59 lakhs. How much in which particular price you are gonna sell it? So basically, selling price is going to be the price that we'll be predicting. Present price is going to be the price that is basically the market value. Okay. Kilometers driven are nothing but the kilometers that the car has drove till date. Fuel type of that particular car, if it's a petrol, diesel, or CNG. Seller type is nothing but if the particular seller is a dealer or an individual. Yeah, exactly, Sudipta. It's necessary. Obviously, you will look at the present price before selling your car, right? But it might happen that you are going in a loss, or it might happen that you are in a very good profit right now, right? Because so obviously you look at the present price of that particular car. Cliff, yeah. Yeah, Dinesh, present price is a feature out there. You need to consider the other factors on top of present price. So you need to, yeah, obviously, all the depend on other independent features will be considered, right? So anyways, these are the cars, Ritz SX4 CRs. These are some of the cars that are very familiar with us, right? Now let's move on to data description. These are the descriptions out there, right? This is the information. From the information we can see we have no null values, right? Are there any null values present? No null values. After that, what I have done a bit of data pre-processing where I have seen the unique values for the categorical variables. What are my categorical variables out here? Fuel type is going to be my categorical, seller type, transmission, and owner. Correct? So these are my unique values. For seller type, I am, as I said, with two unique values, dealer and individual. Fuel type, petrol, diesel, and CNG. Transmission, manual and automatic. And owner, we are having 0, 1, and 3. After that, what I have done, I have taken these features and dropped my name feature. Is the name feature going to give me any basically any effect to that particular price? Owner is the number. Basically, see, whenever you are buying a car, it used to be first owner, second owner, third owner, right? Yeah, exactly, Arijit. Yeah, it's going to be numerical variable. What I am asking you guys is the name car name going to be of any effect in while predicting the price? Depends. Okay. How does it depend, Aditya? Obviously, it depends if you are considering a luxurious car, like if you are saying Mercedes out there, but still the name won't affect it. The main thing that is gonna affect is your present price. Okay. If your present price is very low, it might, if it's going to be Mercedes as well, you bought it in 1 crore. Right now, if the price is like 10 lakhs, are you going to get a price of 50 lakhs out there if you bought it for 1 crore? No, right? It depends on the brand name, but it depends on the present price as well, Sri. Main part, if you are having the present price out there, brand name is of no use, right? That's what I'm saying. If you bought a car for 1 crore in 10 before 10 years, you bought a Mercedes for 1 crore, suppose. Okay. Now, after 10 years, today you want to sell it up. Right now, the price of that particular car is suppose 40 lakhs, and you are quoting the selling price as 80 lakhs. Will you get it? Are you going to get it? No, right? But you can't compare Ritz with BMW if both here is same. See, Ritz and BMW, these are some of the names that we human used to consider it, right? BMW is a premium car or Ritz is a normal hatchback car, correct? Can machine take it like that? Is machine having that particular sentiment inside it? These are some of the sentiments basically, right? Mercedes is a luxurious car, or you can say it's a premium car. Exactly, the value of car would be different. Exactly. So the car name is basically not required if you are having the present price with it. Okay. So that is why I have dropped the present car name. I have taken here selling price, present price, kilometers driven, fuel type, seller type, and transmission. So this is going to be and stored it in something known as final data set. Okay. Now I'm just looking at the final data set dot head. Dinesh, by identifier, what you are saying, is it the unique value that you are asking? Exactly, Cliff. That's what I'm trying to communicate with you guys, that brand value is automatically included in the price. So the name is really irrelevant. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So the unique value that plays the role of unique value is nothing but the index value out here. Okay. Name can't be a unique value. If you just do value counts out there, you'll see that Ritz is having now 500 values. I mean, Ritz is having 10 values. SX4 is also having 10. So name is not a unique value out here. Okay. Sure, Atul, you can drop off. Thank you for attending the session. So this is not from the buyer's end, Madhavi. This is from the seller's end. I want to sell my price. That's what I want to see what the price is the website is quoting me. Getting my point, what I'm saying, Madhavi? Yeah, I'll be talking about Streamlit. It's going to take another 15-20 minutes, okay? I'm just doing it a bit quick now. So data pre-processing, I'm taking the unique values. This is the head. Current year, I'm creating a new feature out here. That is the current year, okay? Current year equals to 2020. So basically I have created a new feature out here, which is current year. From there, what I will do is I will subtract the current year from the year. I am already having the year that the car was bought. That is this feature. So what I'll do, I will subtract it and I'll get the number of the age of that vehicle basically. Okay. After that, I have dropped the year. after I got the number of age of that particular thing, I've dropped the year, and this is going to be my head. Now what I did a level encoding to the categorical variables out there. Now these are label encoded. Number of years, fuel type. Obviously, number of year is not a categorical value. Fuel type is going to, even current year also no use. Yeah, current year obviously it's going to be not of any use. I can drop it up. Correct, Sudipta. We can drop it off. Okay. So fuel type, seller type, and transmission. These are label encoded now. It's the nature of this data set, Chirag. 2 is not there. I have already dropped it off. See, okay, current year is also dropped. So this is going to be my final data set that I'll be putting it up. Selling price, present price, kilometers driven, owner, number of years, fuel type, seller type, transmission. How owner is included in present price, Chiranjit? Arijit, I can show it to you, but I'll have to execute it again, and already the students are in a bit hurry, so I think it will be just a waste of time. Okay, you can just do it whenever I'll be uploading it to the. Just scroll up. Okay, scrolled. Tell me, Arijit. Okay, fine. Yeah, Rajiv, but the students, they obviously everyone is having their own personal works, right? So we should try to cover it up in the scheduled time. Okay, so this is going to be my final data set. Now, what I'll do a bit of EDA. This I did my correlation thing. I just plotted tire plot out there. Then I did my data preparation where I split it into my dependent and independent variable. Arijit, I label encoded it up here. Here. Got it? Yeah. So these are my columns for my X, and this is where I saw owner again, 0, 1, and 3. This is my X dot head. We can't see seller price here, obviously, because it's the Y. Now, what I did train test split out here, and then I built my model. For that, I started with the hyperparameter tuning part. I gave some parameters for n estimators, features, depth, and all those stuff. I created my param grid here. Then I initialized my model. I fitted my model here. Okay. So here the best parameters are n estimators 1000, split 2, minimum sample slip 1. Then the best score that I am getting is minus 4.1. Why minus? Because I'm considering negative mean squared error here. Okay. So from this particular plot, what do you guys can say? Anything from here, this plot? Any insight? What is this plot? This is my Y test and my predictions, right? So we can see that the predictions are mostly nearer to the Y test, right? Outliers we are having, these are going to be your outliers. But the model is working pretty good, right? Now, these are my scores. My MA is 0.86, MSc is 3, and RMSc is 1. Okay. Now, what I did, I imported Pickle. Already I did it, so this particular thing is not required. So how to, how to save a model basically? You will have this command, file equals to open random forest regression model. This is the name that I gave. You can give anything here. .pkl, and WB is nothing but your write. Basically, write bias is nothing but it will write for you. And whenever you want to read it, you'll have to do RB. And then what I did pickle.dump. This is how the model is going to be saved. Now I will show it to you in my directory where it is saved. Yeah, it's right binary, exactly. Now I'll show it to you how this particular thing is saved. Okay. Just a second. Let me share it up. So see, you can see the file out here, random forest regression model.pkl. Is it visible, guys? I can see the chat here or touch. Just a second, I can't see the chat box. Yeah. How to use it for new data set? Kaushik, just let me show it to you. Yeah, Dinesh, we are going to it now. As of now, we have created our model. Now, what should be our focus on? We'll have to create our front end, correct? So is this particular part clear? Obviously, this is a very easy thing for you. We have already seen so many model creation part, right? So the model creation part is done. We have saved our model. Where the model is saved? In the same folder where I was working on. This is my ml.ipynb file, correct? This is my ml.ipynb file where I was working on, and it got saved into the same directory, random forest regression model.pkl. Now our work is to work on the front end part, and for that we will be using Spyder. Okay, basically this is going to be a script, so we'll be working on Spyder here. You can work on PyCharm as well. I personally prefer Spyder. Exactly, for .py extensions you'll have to use Spyder. Now here your Streamlit part comes. Okay, what I am doing, I am importing my Streamlit as st. I'm importing my pickle. Why I'm importing my pickle, by the way? To read, correct? No, this script needs to be written in .py format, so you'll have to use Spyder or PyCharm, Dinesh. To read what do we need to read? To read the model. We need to read the pickle model. So here what I have done, model equals to pickle.load, open random forest regression model.pkl, and here what I have did, I did RB. What is RB? RB is going to be your read binary, correct? What did we use when we were using to create that, save that model? We were using WB. Here we are using RB. So basically by RB, the command used to know that, yeah, we need to load, open the model, or you can say read the model. Exactly, Manish, it's right binary, correct. So after that, I have created a function definition predict underscore price, where I have passed these values. Why these values? Why am I passing these values? Any idea, guys? Present price, kilometers driven, fuel type. These are going to be my input features, correct? X, you remember X? These are my X. Where is it? See, these are my X columns, right? X is going to be your input features. So that is why I have given it to the function. Now I define the variable known as input, where I converted these values into an array. Then what I did model.predict of input. In model.predict.input, what it will come? These values will come, right? Because I have converted into an array and stored it in input. Now I'm giving that input in my predict. Then I'm returning the float. Why am I returning the float? Because the price will be in decimal points, correct? So this is a very easy function that I created. Understood this till this particular part, guys? Great. Now I am moving to my main function. So you guys know, right? The execution always starts from the main function, right? So from here, this particular execution will start. Now this is my main function where I am giving my title as st.title. So basically this is going to be my title, but the placement of the title is going to be fixed as I showed it in this part, my PPT. The front end interface is fixed and developers cannot adjust the position of controls. So you can adjust what you want to write, but you can't adjust the positions, correct? Now this is an HTML template which you guys can just copy it from internet. Zoom in, okay. Is it clear now, guys? Okay. So this is an HTML template that I copied. So I personally don't know how to use HTML, so I copied it up, okay? So you guys can try that out. It's a very easy thing. You will get it in internet, no worries. Here I have written my title as used car price prediction. Pankaj, you can try that out, okay? If it's possible, then it's really good. So here then I did st.markdown html underscore template, loaded the template, this template. Then I have taken my inputs. These are going to be my inputs. So present price, it will be written in the web app as what is the current market value of the car. And this is something which is going to be visible to the user. So this is how this is going to be visible to the user. How much kilometers the car has driven, right? Fuel type, what is the type of fuel used? Sure, Sudip, if you have any doubt, we can move ahead with that as well. Seems like you control position using HTML and inject the seller type. I am taking the input again. So these are the inputs that we will be taking. Here I have written, please type 0 for CNG, 1 for diesel, 2 for petrol. Why am I writing this thing? Any idea, guys? Can't the user give input as petrol directly in string? You can use drop down. Okay. But the thing is, the values are encoded in the model training part. So if you want the users to type CNG or diesel directly, then what you'll have to do, you will have to encode it here. You'll have to encode it here, then you'll have to send it to the model. Getting the point? And how we can do it, research about that. Okay. Seller type, same thing. I have written, please type 0 for dealer, 1 for individual. So before putting it into the ML pipeline, you will have to convert it into the respective encoded values. Clear? So these are all the input values that we'll be taking. After that, I am creating a button known as predict, because in the user side, once you enter the values, if you press on the predict button, the value should be there, correct? That is how an app works basically, right? Right, guys? Yeah, it can be done using user-defined encoding technique, no worries. You don't need to use label encoder here. Yeah, it creates a button known as predict. Okay, after that, I'm putting the output as predict underscore price. What is my predict underscore price? What is predict underscore price? It is my this function, right? This function. This function is going to do my predictions, right? So once I click on predict, once I give the input, after that I'll be predict. Yeah, ST stands for Streamlit, Dinesh. So once I click on predict, what should happen? The data should go to the model, the prediction should happen, and then it should send me back the result. That is what we are expecting, right? that is under the if condition, because if you are not pressing the button, then the result won't be visible, right? So that is why if we are putting it in the if condition. So once you have given the input, then you press the predict button, what will happen? Your predict underscore price will get called. So once this is getting called, what will happen? It will convert it into an array, then it will make the predictions and return back the predicted value. Pankaj, that's what I said, right? See how this particular loading chart is done. I haven't used it here, so you can just research about it. But yeah, it's possible. That's what I can say. You can create interactive dashboards out here, bokeh and everything. But how to load it, you can research about it. Okay. Here I am creating a machine learning web app. I'm not doing an EDA part of thing. That's why I haven't researched about it. You guys can try that out. No worries. So once the predict underscore price is called, after that, I am putting a success message out there. The selling price of this vehicle will be approximately this amount of lakhs. Exactly, we will be doing it, Pankaj. So Homjit, as I said, I haven't done that particular thing, and so I won't be able to do it today. But yeah, you can just put a mail to academics, and we can have a private session on that once I do the research part on that. Okay. Yeah, that's what, Dinesh. Then you'll have to change. You'll have to change the whole training data and everything, right? If your model trained in the last data is not more good for current data, so you'll have to change the data and train it again. Model has to be changed exactly. After that, I am calling my main function. This is going to be this much amount of code in Streamlit is going to create an app for you. Now, how to how to look at the app. So if I directly execute it using shift enter, it won't get executed. Okay. It is not going to get executed. This is giving an error because this particular thing directory hasn't been changed. So if I'm executing it now, the file will get executed, but are you getting any link out there to access it in the browser? Is it there in the terminal? No, right? So for that, what we'll have to do, we'll have to do this thing in my command prompt, or you can say in your Anaconda prompt. Is the Anaconda prompt screen visible to you? So how many of you are comfortable here with prompt, CMD or Linux terminals? Okay, great. So if I want to change the directory, what will be my command? CD. Good. So I'll put, since this particular folder, this file app.py is in which path? It's in my C drive users Lenovo downloads car price, correct? So what I'll have to do, I'll have to do CD downloads first. I'll do CD downloads and then I'll do CD car price. Now I am in my folder. Now I can just look at the directory which files are present. We can see app.py is present. Now what we'll have to do, we'll have to execute app.py, correct? We'll have to execute app.py to get the UI, correct? Because app.py is having the UI created for you, right? This is app.py. This is your app.py, right? So here what I'll do, let me open the command prompt. Streamlit run app.py. Enter. The link is there. This is my app created. This is going to be your UI. Okay. What is the current market value of the car? In lakhs. I'll have to type it in lakhs. So I will type, let's take how many lakhs? 5 lakhs, or you can say 5.6 lakhs. How much kilometer the car has driven? 20,000. Let's take it. Okay. Here I'll have to see type of fuel use. So I will take one for diesel. What is the type of seller? What is the type of seller? 0. Let's take it for dealer. Okay, Arijit is saying 1, so I'll take it as 1. Fine. What is the type of transmission? Let's take it as manual. What is the number of owners? Let's take it as first owner. Okay, Sanjeev is saying 0, so I'll take it 0. How many years old? Tell me, Sanjeev. How many years old? Let's take it 6 years old. Let's see what's the predicted value. The price will be around 6.7 lakhs. The current market value is 5.6 lakhs. I am getting 6.7 lakhs. So from here, what is the insight? Wrong. Why? Why so? That means my model is not working perfectly. Model did not learn perfectly. Exactly. So let's change the number of values for owners. Now see. Number of owner needs to be 1. Okay. Price is 4.94 lakhs. So basically what we'll have to do now, we'll have to make some changes in the model, and we'll have to, okay, Arijit is saying 013. Exactly. So basically we'll have to change something in the data part, and then we'll have to implement this again, and our web app will be ready. But as of now, are you able to understand how to create the web app? No, it won't work in Streamlit. JavaScript validation won't work here. Okay, Shikha, we can try that out. We will have the data set and everything. Try that out and get back to me on this, okay? We can discuss it over a call, no worries. This is on local host. Can we host it on server? Exactly. See, on Flask as well, you can work, first of all, it gets hosted in your local host. But to host it in a server, you can use Heroku for that. Heroku is a free platform. Heroku is a free platform out there where you can just host your these applications. Okay. So then, see, this is one of the applications that I created, and this was created very early ago. Okay. So let me deploy it once for you. I'll just show it to you. GitHub is connected. This one is, by the way, done by Flask. Deploy branch. See, in Flask, you'll have to create your HTML files differently. Okay. You'll have to create templates. You can position it accordingly. Here, basically, the app was, we didn't need to position it up. We didn't need to create much more in the HTML part, right? That is where Streamlit comes. It's very easy to use, but Flask is going to be a bit complicated. Sunil has created this. Let's see. Oh, wow, Sunil, it's really great, huh? Really appreciable. So you use Flask or Streamlit here? Rahul has also done. Great, huh? Sunil has used Flask. See, this is the difference when you will be using the Flask part. Yeah, Rahul, that was also great, huh? I guess this was this is the same data you did it, I guess in the same data that I was using, right? So this is how you can host it up. But what happens in Heroku is now you will have this herokuapp.com thing with you, right? So whenever you are passing those links, you'll have this herokuapp.com wala cheese, right? And it shouldn't be there. If you are an organization, your name should be there. For that, you need to use some. Exactly, you don't own the domain. So for that, you'll have to pay and own a domain, or you can host it up in a cloud server like AWS and everything, which we'll be covering it up in the series that we are planning. Okay. So that was all for Streamlit. You guys can just, what I'll do is I'll upload these files in the LMS by creating a RAR folder, WinRAR folder, and you can just go through it and come back to us if you are having any doubts. Okay. So as of now, we are done for the day. Anything for me, any feedbacks or anything, or we can just drop off for today. Heroku part, we won't be covering. Let's skip it till the local host thing. We'll have a separate session for that. Okay. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you for the feedbacks. Yeah, we are planning to take it when in that series itself that we are planning, we'll be having Docker over there. Sure, Kaushik. Thank you, Arjit. Thanks.